All right, well, welcome to the Sean Trey Show. I've got an awesome guest with me today. Now, would you like to tell people who you are and kind of what you do?
Yeah, I'm Juan Carlos Verona. I'm from Spain, based in London. I'm a photographer, specializing in portraiture and normally music and fashion. That's the areas where I normally work.
Nice. Now, how did you get into the world of photography? How did you find this path?
Um, it's a funny one because I started in the hairdressing world when I was 16,
Interesting.
and then I was surrounded by a lot of fashion magazines.
How did you transition from hair into photography?
I transitioned because my mom was a hairdresser, was a
Interesting.
hairstylist.
Okay.
So I grew up in the hairdressing world since I was born. And
Mm-hmm.
then then I decided to start making some money. I started working in a salon,
Yeah.
and that's how everything happened. Like the salon was full of hairdressing magazines and fashion magazines.
Yeah.
And when you have a lot of free time, you flick around the pages of the magazine, and I love the photography, so I got hooked on that.
Yeah. So did you go
Yes.
out and buy your own camera? How did you kind of embark down that path? Did you go take
But
any
I
classes?
didn't know photography was such an expensive hobby
It's an expensive
when
hobby,
I started.
right?
Yeah, because everything starts as a hobby, right? And then
Right.
you kind of decide to go ahead professionally or not. But when I went to photography school, my the only experience I had with photography was with my auntie's analog cameras that she took on holidays, and that's the only experience I had before.
Yeah.
And then when I went to photography school, they said, "Oh, you need to get a reflex camera and those lenses and all this and that." And then when I realized the price of all that when I was 20, 21, I was like, "Oh my God, this is super expensive." But luckily I was working, so I could
Yeah.
pay for my own camera. And my first camera was a
Yeah.
Canon 350D digital,
Nice.
and then
Mm-hmm.
that's how I learned. From there, I was evolved to learn more about photography, and then I built up a little analog camera that they taught us how to make at school, and that's how I started. Yeah, it was quite nice actually to learn a new skill from zero without no idea. I have no idea what photography was. I didn't know what I was going to. Um, so
Right.
yeah, I guess
That's all.
it was quite interesting.
There's something beautiful about when you begin, the beginning of something, whatever it might be. I still remember I studied judo, and I'm a black belt in judo, and I still remember my first class. I remember the first day I went in there, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I looked around that room, and that first day is still sits in my head, and I still play that day over and over again in my head. And I don't remember all the other days as much, but there's something special about beginning something. And I remember
Mm.
the first camera I got, the first time my dad got me. My dad loves photography, and he's a photographer, and he bought me an old what was it? It was an old Canon analog camera, and it was a beautiful set. I wish I had have kept it. It was a beautiful camera set, and it was beautiful. It was fun to learn. I love analog photography. I'm an absolute fan of analog shooting on
Mm.
film, but it's expensive. Like you said, photography is
It's
an expensive hobby.
Yeah, it is an
But
expensive hobby, but
you
it's
were
one of those things that you have to really love it to go,
yes.
to go on it. I think it's like everything. Every hobby
What
has a little price, right?
right? If you really want to get into it, if you really want to get into the deeper levels of a hobby, there's a price.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, where did
Yeah.
that you were in the salon, you saw these magazines. Um, what What were some of the things that you said, hey, I want to start shooting this? What were some of the first things that you started, some of the first photo shoots that you started doing? What were you taking pictures of?
So my first photo shoot, it was of haircuts that I used to make, and I
Nice.
remember going to my class, to the photography class in post production, and they told us to take some pictures of something to take it to the editing room, and I came with a proper photo shoot
Yeah.
of a haircut I've done. Uh, that was my first thing. I think I always been quite drive about shooting what I like, and at that time I really like haircuts, and I wanted to portray them. So that's how I started doing the haircuts, trying to replicate what I seen in the magazines, and shoot it. If I look back to those pictures, I mean, there's there's a lot of mistakes on that, but it's very
Yeah.
sweet. I remember that very sweet. Yeah,
But it was what inspired you, which is what makes it really special. You know, that's what you were. I love that you see something and then you try to replicate it, and then you try to capture the beauty of what you saw. You know.
yeah, that's how I started. But the same thing it was with hairdressing. When I started, when I was 15, I remember looking at the pictures of them of these hairdressing magazines that they saw you had to do a haircut, and then I used to grab my friends
Hmm.
and replicate the haircut with them. Then when I learned
That's
hairdressing,
awesome.
it was the way I was doing the haircuts. They were terrible, but at that time it was like amazing, to feel like you are doing something like so cool. Um,
Right.
but obviously I had no idea. The same way with the photography. When I started taking pictures, I have no idea about lighting or anything. I was just like, okay, let's go and play and let's do it.
But there's something to to that. I love that. That some of the best artists I've ever met are people who, when they first started their art, decided that they were going to play. They decided they were just going to have fun with it. And I think that's really an important thing, is to give yourself permission to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to feel like a kid when you play, right? You need to feel like free and fearless to make mistakes, and even don't think about what you're doing. Just get hands on it and do it. But the
Right?
thing, that's a funny thing, because when the older you get, the more insecurities it comes because more experience you
Yes.
have. So I guess that's an interesting um, barrier that happens the older you get. I think, I don't know, maybe I don't know, maybe we think too
I
much
think
about what we've done,
I
and
think you're
I
right
don't know.
though. No, I think you're spot on. I think when people get into their heads and start thinking about it, I think that I like to play badminton with my wife. We'll sometimes go out and play badminton. I love it. It's a fun sport. They play it a lot in Asia.
So good.
And serving with the badminton, you take it and you hit it over. You can backhand it. You can go overhand. But when I don't think about it, I serve well. But if I'm like trying to like go, okay, I'm gonna try to hit it here, and I try to think, suddenly it just I can't even do it. I feel like all of my skill is gone. But if I just am relaxing and just playing, I do it quite well. But when I start thinking about it, like, all right, let's see how I'm gonna do this, and there's something to be when we start thinking too much, it throws us off. It throws us into a weird space.
Absolutely. I think that applies to any scope in life. When you think too much about something, it kind of stop working out.
Yeah. So what do you do to stop yourself from thinking too much?
I think I try to breathe, stop, and focus on my breath sometimes. Or like try to, I don't know, if I'm working, I definitely have a moment for myself. Drink a glass of water and try to breathe. Practice a little meditation on the go. That's the way I kind of reconnect a little bit on the way to stop of that,
Man,
all the pressure
it's always
of
good,
thinking too much,
right?
or yeah, or I don't know, or maybe sometimes dropping a joke or telling a story that has nothing to do with. If I'm working with a team, for example, talking a little bit of like small talk or try to get distracted in a way, um, to stop being so controlling
Get out of
about
your head.
uh,
Right.
getting out of the head. Yeah,
Right.
don't get too obsessive about the things.
Right. I'm with you on that. I find that when I get into my head, I just have to find some way to get out. Sometimes it's as simple as just playing some music or something like that, but it helps you if
Yeah,
you
playing
have
some
a
music or even having going for a little walk outside. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, and but before I found myself on moments of pressure, like going outside and chain cigarettes. Like wow, and that's obviously
yeah.
that's really bad. But at that stage, it helped. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think music helps. Breathing definitely helps as well. Um,
Right. No,
yeah,
where do you go for
and having a good
inspiration?
energy on set, for example.
Right? Yeah. Now what do you do for where do you go for inspiration now? What do you try to do to fight to be inspired?
The thing is, like, it's so many sources at the moment. No? If we live on a polluted uh, media, especially if we find inspiration on the internet, it's so polluted
Hmm.
of imagery at the moment. So
Right?
I try to look into things that I really like things that inspire me when I'm reading a book or when I'm watching a film, or even when I'm chatting with my best friends. Uh, and the classic way to go to exhibitions of new artist exhibitions, I think they're super inspiring. That's the sources I will go for. If I have a free day, I will go to here. I'm here in London. I will go to a Tate Modern or to a gallery,
Yeah.
or even walk down the street to watch people around, to look at people.
There's one of
Try
my
to
favorite
feed
things in the
from
world is
there.
just people watching.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's so inspiring.
Right?
Anywhere really,
It's
wherever you are. I guess in Vietnam is so different, right? Than
yeah.
uh, this
Each
part of the
city
world.
has its vibe. Each city has its own unique um, energy, and if you're in London, there's people in the movement and the vibration of the city is just one way, but if you are in Vietnam, it's got a whole different vibe, and I think that's one of the fun things I like. I love street photography, and sometimes if I'm having a stressful
Oh,
day, I'll
I
just
love
take
it.
a camera out and go and see what I can take pictures of.
I really like that. Yeah, we start a guy I'm sharing the studio with, and we start a photography magazine, and we
Nice.
show a lot of photography. Yeah, we start this new project during the pandemic, and we try to show like a lot of street photography, and it's amazing. And the thing is, like, photography, not only in portraiture, it's like everything is just I loved everything.
Hmm.
Still life, even things that I don't really photograph, but street
Right.
photography, still life, everything, wildlife.
Hmm.
you know.
Well, and there's each style of photography has its own special way of doing it. I interviewed once this photographer, um, who was a photographer who focused on winter action sports, and he was telling me like what it was
Wow,
like to take
nice.
to photograph that. It's wild, right? And you think about like the challenges that you have for that. There's so many things that he would have to think about. Is like how to keep his batteries warm was a really important thing for him, not letting his batteries
Of course,
freeze,
yeah.
because and you don't think about that, but it's something that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean, the batteries can go super fast on a very extreme weather conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was something that was a really big deal for him. And and like when you're dealing with action sports, knowing how to expose just that perfect shot, especially when you've hiked up on a giant mountain, and you don't get two shots at it. You get one chance. And so it's like, oh, so stressful.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you get the shot or you don't, and you go back home. You have to go back home. It's only one chance.
That's it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but that's
Now,
fascinating.
now,
Like it's like extreme
right,
sports. Like wow, I found them very fun. Those guys that they do,
right,
I don't know, it could be downhill or it's, all this climbing or anything like that. It's like you have so much fun with that because obviously you shooting that
right.
because you practice that sport,
Exactly.
which is very cool. I love that.
That's
I
right.
think photography
Me
is
too.
like at the end you photograph where you are present on, and you photograph the things that you like, and or like the things that inspires you. I don't know. It's such an interesting thing. Uh, to Why do you decide to photograph X thing, or mainly because you like that, you feel drive by it, right?
Right. And it's like I feel like photography is a window into the soul of the photographer. You get to look inside that person's mind for a period of time and see what is important to them. What are the things that they find beauty in?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that because when you're photographing, you're giving yourself. I mean, I hope when I'm photographing people, I'm not too overwhelming with them, but I think. Um, I definitely try to. For me, it's so important to communicate with it. But normally, because what I do is portraiture. So for me, it's super important to have good communication with the person I have in front to make that person feel comfortable and you know,
Yeah.
obviously being aware of the lighting and all those things. But once you have everything more or less controlled, you cannot push that you know uh, that part of yourself to that translate into the image. Um,
Yeah.
but obviously, on portraiture, you want to represent that person. You want to make that person comfortable enough to get the most of that person, and I think that's the key um, on my side. I guess street photography or it might be a bit different because you're photographing, you know, things that you see, the angles that you see. I guess you can see more of the shot of the soul of the photographer on there. I don't know.
Mm.
That's the
But it's
magic of
still
photography. It's like
right.
so beautiful
There is a
about
magic.
this is definitely a magic. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Well, you think about like our world history. And before, I don't remember what year, but it's sometime in the 1800s. Before that time, we will never have any visual record of what anything looked like. For the dinosaurs or even what
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
looked like 1,000 years ago. We have no real idea. We have paintings, but it's not really accurate. I mean, granted, there are some really good paintings and such, but it's still it's not as exact as photography is. And you think about it, like there's now this wealth of data and this a beautiful ability to capture memories, which is such a beautiful part of photography for me. This ability to preserve what we saw, what we see, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. The 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 fact that we can keep record of our memories with no cost now is amazing,
Right. Right?
and the power of yeah, is incredible that we have the access to free cameras on our phones now, and they are very
Right?
they are good enough, to keep
Right?
record of our lives, and the fact to have
Yeah,
that is
exactly. And
I think I think it's
and the
good for
quality of some of
photography
these
in a
phones.
way. I know it's amazing. And they're so
Yeah,
light
right.
as well, and you can photograph. You can have a quite decent quality in a very lightweight equipment.
Right.
Obviously, it's different than operating up your lenses and things like that. But I think technology makes our life a lot easier, and I think you
Hmm.
know um, it's a part of the evolution of the skill. It's a good thing and a bad thing, and but it's what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. Now tell me a little bit more. What was this project that you started during COVID? What was this project that you started, this magazine? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, we started this project, this photography platform called Zero Nine Magazine, all spelled out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can find it on internet, 09magazine.com, and the same on Instagram. Well, we started this magazine during the pandemic because we all work it went on freeze, so we have no jobs because everybody was so scared, and all the productions
Right.
they were on halt, and there were a lot of nobody knew what to do, like how we're gonna photograph
Mm-hmm.
people, all these government measures that they told us later, but that was quite late. So if lockdown
Mm-hmm.
in the UK started in March, we wouldn't be able to shoot until I don't know June or July. May, I think May was when we were able to start shooting, but there were like a lot of guidelines to photograph, so not much you could do.
Mm.
So we have a lot of free time to think, and on the studio that we have, we were like, what can we do? Let's start a platform where we can invite people and we can talk to them, photograph them, and start building up a little community where we can show up the world or the world of photography, like in terms of showing
Mm-hmm.
photography projects of different photographers around the world, shooting our own stories, inviting photographers to talk about their photo books and stuff like that. So we launched it in October 2020, and then we keep going. We keep going until today, and it's very satisfying because uh, for us, I think we do what we love, and it's like showing other people's work at the same time being active
Awesome.
for ourselves. They help us to find a bit of balance between our commission work and our inspiration work,
Mm.
and being in contact with other fellows is very very nice because I found that photography is quite a solitary work. You spend a lot
Yeah.
of time on your own. Um, if you're a fashion photographer, obviously you're working on this fantasy world that you work with a team of hair, makeup, art direction, stylist, etc. But if you are a street life photography or a still life or street photographer, that every photographer think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody thinks that or says that it's quite a lonely work because you are on your own with your camera photographing.
Mm-hmm.
So being able
Yeah.
to share, basically to share the passion of photography with other people, I think is very very nice and very healing as well because you communicate with you talk to other people and I think that communication is so important and it really fills it fills me with a lot of uh, good stuff.
I like that. Tell me about a project that you photographed that was really inspiring to you, or some project or photo shoot that was really one that you go back to as really inspiring.
This I mean, on the top of my head, this has to be very quick. I cannot stop thinking too much about it. But when you
Yeah, yeah,
said
yeah.
that there was like, I used to make music videos before, and I like to
Nice.
work with my hands. So I remember one music video
Mm,
I made for quite like a quite popular band here in the UK, and I had to build up papier mâché heads, and the whole process of
okay.
making all these characters with my hands,
Paper mache.
yeah, it was really inspiring and really satisfying because I had to learn how to make a papier mâché head, and the whole process of
That's
painting
awesome.
it, sculpting them, the whole thing. It was very very inspiring. And then the whole process of directing it and working with the DOP and everything was super fun. That's a moving image. In stills, I loved every project I work on. I really do. Every project I have the pleasure to work on is I don't know. It's a very exciting because you never know what's going to happen until you finish. Uh,
Right?
and
You,
that's why
you
I
never know.
made one project. I challenged myself into doing the hair and the photography,
Okay.
um, and I did a crazy thing of booking like 10 male models in one day, and I was only
Wow.
myself, a makeup artist and a stylist, and I had to place those hair extensions on the models' heads. And I did that because I didn't want to think too much about what I would do with their heads. So,
Mm,
so I did that in 2 days. I photographed 20 boys, 20 guys, and doing their heads. And the makeup artist was doing their makeup, and the stylist was like placing some stuff on them. And that was very, very, very inspiring because it was like the fact of not thinking too much and be just present on the moment and just
yeah.
doing it. And that was amazing. But as well, it's a personal project. It's not like something I could do on a commercial level.
Yeah.
But that was very nice.
Do you have anything that you would love to photograph? That you maybe, or any one that you would love to photograph that you haven't had the chance?
Mm, I love to photograph everybody.
Right?
I love to photograph. I don't know. I like to photograph Barack Obama, for example, or I like to
Mm,
photograph, you know, his wife Michelle Obama. It would be amazing.
mm,
Or people who are like very, I don't know, very conscious about the world, even like a sport people like I would say
mm,
Michael Jordan, for example, or you know
right.
people that have influenced the world in that way. It would be very interesting
Yeah.
to have the chance to photograph them. Maybe one day it will happen. But yeah, I would love that. I would like to basically to meet that people and have a little chat and after I photograph them, but it's mainly to
Well,
get
see,
to know them.
that's the beautiful thing with portrait photography, and I feel the same with my podcast. You're not just you're not just taking a person's picture. You're also having a chance to meet them and to and with this I mean the portrait photography is extremely intimate in the fact that seeing you are trying to capture and see the essence of that person and who they really are, and you bring that out, you know. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, make them feel comfortable. Yeah, and some people are very tricky because they're very busy with their lives and very like they don't have time for you to
Hmm.
photograph them or they don't like to even to be photographed. So it's
Yeah.
a challenge. Recently, I photographed a band, and I only have 15 minutes to photograph them, and it was for
Wow.
a feature for a magazine, and I only have 15 minutes, and the guys they didn't really like the picture taken, so I because I knew that I have to be very quick and painless for them, and I think they appreciate that I was quite respectful with the fact that they didn't like that, and not trying to be very overwhelming on directing them. Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
listen to the subjects, and that's it. Being present and enjoy. That's it.
Yeah. I think that's profound. I think that there's excuse me. One of the things that is really special to me is that with photography, it is the essence and the art of being present. It's
Yeah,
the essence and art of, because you can't take a photo in the future. You can't take a photo in the past. You can only take a photo right now.
yeah,
And when I carry a camera with me places, I find that I look at the world differently. When I just go out and around and I'm just like, oh, I miss things. But when I have a camera, I'm really paying attention to what's happening visually in that moment. And so I love having a camera with me because it slows me down to look at the
yeah,
world differently. And I think that's important.
yeah. That's super. I found that happening when I'm traveling. When I'm traveling, I'm
Mm,
always like carrying a camera because you always look at things in a very different way. Was
yep.
just when people spend a long time in the same city, you start feeling less inspired, and you look less around your surroundings. But when you are
Yeah.
traveling, you're always everything is new and everything is you want to capture all that.
Mm-hmm. You want to look, and we were. I went for a drive with my wife tonight, and we drove through the city that we've driven through thousands of times. Hundreds of thousands of times, and yet I stopped at this red light and I looked up, and tonight was a different night than every other night that I've been in the city, and and for a moment I was just like, wow, it's really beautiful, but so often it's like you drive with blinders on and you're not looking at the
Mhm.
world. But I think that it's so important. I think one of the things that is my favorite thing about photography is that photography teaches us to really look and to look at
Absolutely.
things in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah,
At least I hope it does.
that's the beauty of it, I think. Yeah. When you look at a photograph, it's sometimes a photograph can tell us a lot more than a film, for example.
Yeah,
You know, uh, depending the way you look at it.
because I think it gives that place, space, and time. I once saw this photograph of these hands of this hands of this old man, and they were really beat up hands. It was the hands of a man who'd worked most of his life. And yet it was just a photograph, but by really looking at the photograph, there was a whole story in a photo of hands. And I
So
was just
beautiful.
like blown away by this photo of these, right? It's so
It's
amazing.
so beautiful. I love that. Yeah.
And there's no words. There was no descriptive story. But by looking at this image, you could understand almost the whole life of this man just through this photo,
Yeah. Stunning, no? What an amazing feeling. When a
right?
photograph is
Right?
capable to do that, that's beautiful. I love that.
It's magic.
That's why
It's
I think
modern
that's why
magic.
we love photography because that's the power of you know of a photograph. I can see that
Well,
image
it brings
exactly
me
when you were describing it.
right, right.
Yeah,
And I love that the statement, and it comes back to that statement in English that we have that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I firmly believe that. You have this image, and it conveys so much, even if there's no description.
yeah. But most of the time, it's quite important to have a a title on the image.
Yes.
Sometimes
Why?
it's
Tell me why. Why do you think that?
I don't know. I think it comes into an author kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting. You can have a picture of a match
Mhm.
and titled, I don't know, uh, whatever. I don't want to jump into that, but and
Mhm.
depending the name of that they put onto that picture, it will have a completely different meaning, and that's
Well,
part of
I like
the
that.
art.
Like say you have a match, right? Like you said, you have a match. Like say so if the
Mm.
title of the image is heat, that gives one idea about what that image is about. But if the title of that picture is like fragile, it could be like, it has a whole
Totally
different
different.
meaning because a match, yeah. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I never thought about that, but that's really interesting.
Yeah, the title of an image is so important. Although some images they don't need a title at all, but I think it's part of the of the piece of work to you know
Hmm.
to think about what name you give to the picture, because it will
I never
enhance
thought
the
about that.
image, or it will um, yeah, it's quite interesting, huh?
If you could go back in time and give some advice to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
mm, I will say, mm, what advice I will give to myself.
Yeah. Not things you would
I don't
change,
know.
but
I
advice
That's
you
a
would give
very
yourself.
advice. I will say step by step.
Mm.
I
Tell me
would
more
I
about
would
that.
tell to
Why?
myself, go step by step, and because sometimes I don't know. I guess that's part of being very ambition. To have an ambition and try to reach, um, to go to where you want to go fast. Sometimes it's good to be slow because you get there faster than
Mm.
go fast. You get there slower. And I think I always tried since I was very young. Perhaps because I always been, I always, I don't know, everything I have, I got it by myself, and I left home when I was very young, so I always worked very hard, um, and I always wanted to do things very not quick, but like I want always to make money and work and. But if I would be 19 again, I would possibly, I don't know, assist more photographers that I have done, for example, taking less risk of like jumping on my own company when
Mm.
like 12 years ago or something. Um, I don't know. That I would say that talking from I would say that talking from fear, uh, but talking from
Mm.
fears and strength, I would say no, fuck it, go for it, do it. But I think it's important to take one step and learn the industry well, because sometimes if you don't know how the industry works, you go one step back. But I
Hmm.
guess that's part of the process. But yeah, if I would have to give an advice to myself, it would be, um, yeah, go step by step. Yeah.
I like that. Now, if you had Aladdin's lamp, the lamp from Aladdin, what would you wish for?
To be more, in photography, for me at this stage of my career, is, it goes ups and downs. Yeah, like I got
Mm.
periods of I got months that I'm very very busy and months that I'm not. I'm a bit quieter. So I would say be more consistent on that. You know,
I like that.
what's
No problem.
yeah, I would say to be more consistent, to have a bigger studio. I got a massive list. But
Right?
but yeah, I
Yeah,
think I would be like to to keep working, to be able to keep working and keep learning.
I love that. I love that. I love the idea of even if I had like hundreds of millions of dollars, I would love to have hundreds of millions of dollars just to keep doing what I'm doing. Because I love
Absolutely,
what I'm
yeah,
doing. You know what I mean? Get
yeah,
rid of the money side and then just do it because you love it.
yeah. Don't worry
So
about the
that's
money
awesome.
exactly. I would like to have all the money so I don't be able to. I don't need to worry. But I think if you have that you can keep learning, you will feel super rich. And money won't be able to.
Right.
You know, money is not that important really, as much as the feeling of feeling fulfilled by something that you love doing. Um,
Right. I love that.
Obviously, money is very important because we all have bills to pay, and London is super
Right.
expensive, and the older
Super.
you get, it
Yeah.
seems that the bills are bigger.
Yeah.
but
Right.
I would say being very busy, keeping very busy, and keep that passion really.